Blow-up inflatable slides did activate, and witnesses saying they saw people jumping down that slide, and obviously fire retardant was used all over the plane to put out the flames.
We also had another report from Redwood City, the fire department there, according to KTVU, that there were some passengers on board who were being treated with burn injuries. That would be understandable as you look at the damage that has resulted from this crash, what's left of this plane. Once again, this was an Asiana Airlines flight, a South Korean airline coming from South Korea. A Boeing 777 can carry anywhere between 246 to 300 passengers. That, according to the website of this airline, which may tell us a little bit more about the model itself of this Boeing 777. We heard Britt Folbaum speaking earlier about these types of planes. They are used for long distance flights, up to 12 hours, cross-country flights of that such, and carry a large number of passengers.
We are getting more details now on the exact model of this Boeing 777. It's a 200. So Boeing 777-200, it's a long-range plane from Boeing. The twin-engine aircraft it's really one of the world's most popular long-distance planes, often used for flights of 12 hours or more from one continent to another. Now, the airline's website says that this particular model of 777 can carry between 246 to 300 passengers. Again, the departure was South Korea, and the destination, San Francisco International Airport. Video clip posted on YouTube showed a great deal, and we're going to show that to you again. So let's cue that up. But it shows smoke coming from a silver-colored jet on the tarmac, this jet, and passengers, according to witnesses, seen jumping down the inflatable slide. Let's listen in. Here's the 22-second clip. You can hear the voices in the terminal in the background. That appears to be video taken by somebody at the airport terminal there, and obviously thick black smoke. When we first started covering this story an hour ago, it was still smoking. Now it is not. And all flights out of San Francisco International Airport have now been canceled.
And just to let people know, to look up there in the top portion of your screen, you can see there a little red area. That is the tail of the plane. Do you see what I'm speaking about? Yes. Up in the top corner. And then as we zoom over closer, that was the tail. And then I believe this shot's going to take you across the debris field there. And then you can see where the plane, there's the tail, another portion of it. There's 3 or 4 portions of the tail, 2 more, that have split apart there. And then the plane itself resting just off the runway. This was runway 28 at San Francisco International, 28 left. And the plane itself came to a rest there off the side of the runway. A triage unit has been set up next to it as well. You can see emergency crews, investigators combing through the debris field.
Asiana is a South Korean airline, as we mentioned. They're not returning calls. But one would expect them to issue a statement at some point in time. They're second in size to the national carrier, Korean Air, and they've been trying recently to expand their presence here in the United States and join the One World Alliance, which is anchored by American Airlines and British Airlines. But again, this is a long-range plane that started in South Korea, and its destination was San Francisco International Airport. And it's really unclear at this early stage just what happened. All we know is one witness telling a local television station that the tail came off just before touchdown. That may be contradicted by other witnesses and the facts. Obviously, you want to listen to the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder. That will tell you some. If the pilots got out alive, and again, we don't know of any fatalities yet, then obviously that would be critical to the NTSB investigation.
And at least one official comment coming from the FAA spokeswoman saying that while the sequence of events is still unclear, it does appear the plane landed and then crashed. A lot of the information that is coming to us really is coming from eyewitnesses, and our Rick Folbaum is standing by, I believe. And Rick, you've been following some of what some eyewitnesses have to say. Some new reports coming in, also some comments that they're posting on social media.
That's right, Heather. And it was inevitable that Twitter would play a role in this, at least in terms of getting the stories out there, people who were involved in this awful accident today. I want to point out, though, we showed that report photograph a minute ago that was sent to us by a viewer, and you can see the top of the airplane in that picture on the right still fully intact while people were being brought off the airplane. So evidently there was some time for the rescue workers, the first responders, to get people to safety, and that is good news. And you couple that with some of the tweets that I've been reading, especially from one passenger on the plane named David Uner, whose Twitter handle is @Unerer, and he tweets, "I just crash landed at SFO," the abbreviation for San Francisco's airport. "Tail ripped off. Most everyone seems fine. I'm okay. Surreal," he tweets. And then he goes on in another post and says, "Fire and rescue people all over the place. They're evacuating the injured. Haven't felt this way since 9/11. And then one more tweet from David Yoon. He says, "Lots of activity here. Friends, please don't call right now. I'm fine. Most people are totally calm." And we are getting some other tweets from some fire and rescue agencies in Southern California saying that some of the non-critical patients have been transported to local hospitals. There are reports of at least one critical person, one critical passenger who's being treated for injuries. We don't know the extent of those injuries, but fire extinguishers, triage in progress according to the Southern California Fire and EMS, and that they were going through the plane and doing another count just to make sure that everybody was accounted for. So we're able to get a couple of more details, some more nuggets. We'll continue to follow the social media and bring you some more as we get it back.
Thanks, Rick. Associated Press is filing very quickly some information from a reporter who says unnamed eyewitnesses said the plane was teetering as it approached the runway. They saw the tail of the plane hit the runway. The nose of the plane was in the air higher than the tail. So that would seem to suggest that the tail came off after hitting the runway, not before. But again, these are early eyewitness accounts. They may contradict one another. They may be inconsistent. The people, here's some more notes from this reporter, again, Associated Press. People walking around the outer edge of the pool of white foam surrounding the plane. Debris scattered on the runway. When the reporter pulled into the parking lot, he could see smoke billowing from the plane, police vehicles streaming down the streets, a long line of emergency vehicles pulling up to the runway. Several eyewitnesses, including some with binoculars, saw the evacuation slides come out, but then didn't see anyone get on them. The reporter said the view of the plane was obscured for a long period of time by smoke as she approached.
And I want to bring this to our viewers. This, of course, the official or some official comments coming from the FAA, and then we're going to bring in our own John Scott, who is standing by. And John, you can listen to this as well. The flight, this according to the FAA, their official statement so far, the flight that crashed was Asiana Airlines. We know this, flight 214, scheduled to arrive in San Francisco 11:26 Pacific from Seoul, South Korea. The plane crashed upon landing on runway 28 left. Investigators on the scene. The FAA cannot confirm the number of people on board, but I believe that we have said 219. They also cannot confirm that the tail number of the plane. We also are being told by the FAA that at this point, and this would be pretty obvious, runway 28 left and right are closed, and they're looking into reports that perhaps the entire airport is closed as well. And they'll get back to us with any additional information. John Scott joining us now. John, you're a pilot yourself. Are you looking at these pictures, and what's your reaction?
I am, Heather, and I want to make it clear, first of all, I only fly a single-engine, propeller-driven aircraft. That's very different from flying a Boeing 777, but there are some commonalities to all kinds of aircraft. And there are some things that you can see just by the debris field that's been left behind on this plane. First of all, let me state at the beginning, commercial aviation is incredibly safe. You can fly millions of miles before you see an accident of this type. It's also a truism. And here's the shot I really wanted you to see. Look at that debris field. Runway 28, both runway 28L and 28 right, 28R, are built on jetties, rock jetties that protrude out into a body of water. I presume it's San Francisco Bay. That's salt water there, where you see that what appears to be a piece of aircraft and what looks like, aircraft debris. And it looks to me like this pilot simply brought this plane in too low, that it was almost scraping the surface of the water with its tail when it came in, and it impacted that rock jetty there, which is actually the end of the runway, and probably that's what tore the tail off. And it may have torn off the landing gear too. I saw landing gear lying alongside the runway in one of the photos with some of the video that we've seen. So it's also true of big jets. Takeoff and landing are the most dangerous phases of flight, and you don't have a lot of room for error. Also true of big jets, that if you're coming in too slow or too low and you need power, jets take a little more time. It takes a little more time with a jet engine to develop power, to develop the thrust that'll get you back up in the air higher. And if this pilot suddenly found that he was a little bit too low, even say 20 feet too low on his final approach, even if he hit the gas, he may not have had time to get that tail up in the air. Planes come in tail low anyway. They're always going to be hanging low. You know that just from observing them, but it's also part of the aerodynamics of flight. They come in tail low, and they touch down, obviously, hopefully, on the main landing gear. But it looks to me like this one was too low, with the tail practically scraping the water when it came in, and it impacted that very edge of runway 28. We'll see the number in a minute. Probably 28L.
Yeah, we're being told that it was 28L is the runway.
And there's some debris in the water, John. So
and,
it does.
It
looks like it just hit the jetty.
Yeah, I think he just brought the plane in too low. And again, most accidents, most aviation accidents, unfortunately, are caused by human error. And it looks to me like there could be other causations here, other factors. There may have been a gust of wind or something, a microburst that caused the plane to lose altitude in a hurry, and the pilot couldn't adjust to it. But it looks to me, look at that debris field dragged all the way. You see those things that look like teepees? Those are the marking point. Your wheels are not supposed to touch down until you are beyond those teepees. That's the usable runway beyond those teepees, at the pointed end of those teepees. Clearly, this plane was shedding pieces for 100 yards or so before it got to the usable runway.
John, you hear pilots often say that these commercial jetliners are so sophisticated and computerized they almost fly by themselves. What about on landing? Is it all done manually by the pilot or computer assistance?
There would have been, they could have done a computer-assisted landing. Again, this is probably a little bit beyond my expertise, but I do read a lot about aviation. And I know that, if you're going to land in fog, which is frequently present in San Francisco, you're going to have an auto landing system that can practically put that plane on the runway by itself. But it is also true, and I've talked to commercial pilots about this, once you're in the air at altitude, flying a plane is about as exciting as driving a bus. And so most pilots, the only sort of fun part of the flight, where they get to do some hand flying and they're not on autopilot, is usually at takeoff, and always at takeoff and at landing. So if they have the opportunity to land, or in this case, perhaps the pilot may have allowed his first officer to handle the landing, because that gives him time as pilot in command and gives him one landing that he can notch in his logbook. you know, that they like to land. That's what they are pilots for. They like to fly those things.
John, I wanted to ask you something as we take a look at the shot. If we could pull up the shot there of the plane itself, again, full. We had a U report shot that came in earlier where you could see initially, at least,